Well, good evening everybody and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of this evening, 18th of June 2026. Before we get the meeting underway, I have the live streaming declaration and everything is working tonight, which is good. The Shire of Murray Ordinary Council meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Shire's website in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Members of the public attending this meeting consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be captured on the recording and live streaming. Statements or decisions made at this meeting should not be relied or acted on by an applicant or any other person until they have received written notification from the Shire of Murray. Okay, well, like I said, welcome everybody. It's nice to have some members of the public with us in the gallery. We have all elected members present and all members of the executive staff present. We have no apologies. I have no leaves of absence at this point. Does anyone? No, we'll do that later anyway. Brings us on to item 3, response to previous questions taken on notice. That is nil. Which brings us through to question 4, public question time. I have been advised in writing that there is one public question from a Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook, would you like to come to the microphone and for the purposes of the recording state your address and your name and read your question, please?
Yeah, hello, my name's Mark. Live on the Bailey Island, have lived down there for the last 22 years. Basically, all I'd like to know is if the Shire can start spending a little bit more time on the lower Murray River and the erosion of the riverbanks, if possible. I think it's been an ongoing concern for quite some time, but I think, I don't know if you guys live on the river or near the river, but it's used by a lot of people. There's a lot of major erosion going on with trees falling in and all sorts of stuff. So I was just wondering if I actually do a couple of rock jobs on the banks of the Murray River, and I have been working with the Shire and they have been assisting me as far as supplying a truck, etc., to move rocks so that we can continue with the erosion problem on the river. But I think we need to spend some more time, and probably, yeah, it's becoming a bit of an issue. But like I say, it's a lot of people use that Murray River, boats, swimming. Obviously, you people know about that. So that was it, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Yes, we certainly understand your question, and we are certainly advocating in that space. It's really tricky. We have jurisdiction over the land, but we don't have jurisdiction over the water or the waterway. That sits with 2 state departments, which is always tricky. So we are certainly advocating very hard to the state. We are submitting 3 grants to the tune of $800,000 to try and work on erosion in the waterway, certainly in the Delta Islands. So we will continue to do that, and as our local government municipal funds are available, which is, as I'm sure you're well conversant with, is tight with our budget, hence the reason we're chasing state grants. But we are certainly aware, we're certainly advocating on behalf of the waterway and the residents on the waterway, even to the point where we've asked and challenged the state government due to the salinity of the water and the opening of the doors will cut. So, you know, we're certainly looking at it on many different angles, and we will continue to do so. But thank you for your question. Are there any other questions from anyone in the public gallery? No? That's fine. We'll call that one closed, which brings us down to item 5, petitions and approved deputations. Now, I'm just going to take a moment here under deputations to welcome Megan McCrill from Ovis and just ask any elected member if they would have any question of Ms McCrill, because once we go past this point in the agenda, we won't be able to ask her any questions about Ovis. So, sorry, I didn't say that bit. She's from Ovis. So it's in relation to item 19.1. So I just thought I'd use this spot to give elected members some question time if Ms McCrull's happy to field a question or two. Great. Does anyone have any questions at all? Gee whiz, you're lucky. You don't have to answer any. That's great. Thank you very much. Therefore, there are no petitions or approved deputations, which brings us to item 6, confirmation of the minutes. 6.1, Ordinary Council Meeting, 28th of May 2026. Do I have a mover for those minutes, please? Councillor Lee and Councillor Willis to second. Are there any comments or questions in relation to those minutes? Is anyone likely to oppose? We'll call that carried. Thank you. Item 6.2, Bushfire Advisory Committee Meeting, 27th of May 2026. Those minutes are there. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Kirkham and Councillor Rogers will second. Any comments or questions? Is anyone likely to be opposing this? If there's no opposition, then we'll call it carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, CEO Performance Review Committee Meeting, 28th of May 2026. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Carter and Councillor Black to second. Any comments or questions in relation to that? Anybody likely to oppose that? No? If there's no opposition, then we'll call that item as carried unanimously. Which brings us on to item 7, announcements by the presiding member. They will be attached to the minutes. Likewise, item 8, announcements by elected members, will be attached to the minutes. Item 9, acknowledgement of receipt of disclosure of interest by the presiding member. I have one from Councillor Cashman. It's an impartiality interest. It's in relation to item 10.1, Chief Bushfire Control Officer Model, and item 10.2, 2026-27, Bushfire Compliance Notice, in that he is a current member of the South Yunderup Ravenswood Volunteer Bushfire Brigade. And when we get to that item, Councillor Cashman, you can read the declaration. And I also have a financial interest from the CEO, Dean Unsworth, in relation to item 20.1, CEO Performance Review Financial Interest, for obvious reasons. And the CEO will leave the room for that item. That brings us on to item 10, reception of minutes and recommendations of committees held since previous meeting of council. 10.1 is the Chief Bushfire Control Officer Model. Councillor Cashman, you've got an impartiality interest. If you could read the declaration, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. With regard to item 10.1, I disclose that I have an association with South Yunderup Ravenswood Volunteer Bushfire Brigade as a current member. This association is as a member. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will set aside this association, consider the matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cashman. Councillors, we have a recommendation in front of us. Do I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Rogers and Councillor Kirkham to second. Are there going to be any comments or questions in relation to this item? Yes, Councillor Cashman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a comment, if that's okay. In support.
A question at this point.
Oh, sorry.
Question at this point.
Not just yet.
If you have a comment, then we'll move to the mover to open debate. No, the mover reserves. Seconder? No, you're reserving. So, yes, now, Councillor Cashman, you have the opportunity to speak.
My apologies, Mr. President. Mr. President, the consultation undertaken with our brigades has delivered an overwhelmingly clear message. Across the workshop, the SWOT analysis and the written submissions, our brigades have strongly expressed their preference for a volunteer leadership model for the roles of Chief Bushfire Control Officer and Deputy Chief Bushfire Control Officer. The report highlights that volunteers bring operational knowledge, trusted relationships and a deep understanding of the brigade capabilities and the community expectations. These strengths described in the report as strong volunteer relationships and trust, an established understanding of the brigade capability, fundamental to effective bushfire response and cannot be replicated through a Shire employed model. Mr. President, these are the people who stand on the fire brigade. They know the terrain, who know each other well and who carry the operational experience that protects our community. When the very volunteers who deliver the frontline response tell us the leadership structure that best supports them, I believe it's our responsibility to listen. And I really commend the council, the Shire, on meeting with the brigades and getting all of their input. I thought it was a wonderful thing to do. And for that reason, in recognition of the clear majority view of the brigades, I'll be supporting the volunteer model. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cashman. Is there any other comments or questions from elected members? If not, I'll give the mover the opportunity to speak. No? With that, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That is passed unanimously. That brings us through to item 10.2, 2026-2027 bushfire compliance notice. And likewise, Councillor Cashman, you have a impartiality declaration to read, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. With regard to item 10.2, I disclose that I have an association with South Yarnrut Ravenswood Volunteer Bushfire Brigade as a member of the brigade. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will set aside this association, consider the matter on its merits and vote accordingly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Cashman. Councillors, the officer's recommendation, the committee recommendation is there. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Rogers to move, Councillor Willis to second. Are there any comments or questions? Is anyone likely to be opposing this item? No. If nobody is going to be opposing this item, I'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That is passed unanimously. This brings us to reports of the Chief Executive Officer and officers. Item 11, Planning and Sustainability. 11.1, Proposed Unhosted Short-Term Rental Accommodation Local Planning Policy. Consideration of submissions. Councillors, we have the recommendation there. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Carter and Councillor Lee. Is anyone likely to be opposing this item? Are there any comments or questions? That being the case, we'll put the item. All those in favour? It's passed unanimously. Item 11.2, Coopers Mill Reserve Foreshore Management Plan and Conservation Management Strategy. Councillors, have I got a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Carter and Councillor Black to second. Are there any comments or questions?
Can I just say that Coopers Mill is a unique part of the Shire, supports visitation by both locals and visitors by having a certified foreshore management plan. The Shire has the information needed to proceed with discussions on how to manage the area going forward and access external funding opportunities, such as you were talking about before with the grants. So I think this is a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Black, have you got anything to add? Thank you. Is there any elected member likely to be opposing this item? If not, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Item 11.3, Proposed Unhosted Short-Term Rental Accommodation, Lot 22, 7 Marginata Crescent in Dwelling Up. We have the officer's recommendation there. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Willis to move, Councillor Lee to second. Is there anyone likely to be opposing this item? Are there any comments or questions?
What are you approving or not approving?
It's up on the screen here, the officer's recommendation. Councillor Willis, you'd like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President.
So the state has put the decision of STRAs to local government, and I believe their reasoning is because local government understands the specific benefits and deficits for STRAs in their area. And our responsibility is to keep a community alive as more than just a holiday destination. Permanent residents create volunteers, school attendees, and weekday value to the local businesses, all of which are dwindling away in Dwellingup, in part due to STRAs and also lack of land release. Council has taken in part of their draft STRA consultation document, a detailed consultation within the Dwellingup community, and the results were really high that the community is valuing what little residents they have left there, and that has formed my decision today.
Thank you, Councillor Willis. Councillor Lee, would you like to add any comment?
No, I totally agree with Councillor Willis's comments, and we need to maintain housing within Dwellingup for people to live there permanently.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Is there anyone wishing to speak against this item? Was there anyone else that would like to make comment on the item before we put the item? If not, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That is passed unanimously. Item 11.4, domestic outbuildings and exemptions from development approval, local planning policies, consideration of submissions. Do I have a mover for the item, please? Councillor Carter and Councillor Rogers to second. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Carter?
Can I just say, as I stated during the April OCM, I have spoken to many residents over the years who've been exceptionally happy with the support they've received from staff within planning, and it makes sense to remove the burden on the team and on residents as well for low impact, non-controversial developments of this type. So I would like to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Rogers, would you like to make comment? Is there anyone likely to speak against or wishing to speak against this item? If not, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. (11.5) Proposed renewable energy facilities local planning policy consideration of submissions. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Lee. Councillor Black to second. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Lee, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, only that we obviously need a policy because such things as telephone poles and towers and so forth, and these other renewable energy facilities seem to be starting to happen quite a bit, need to have some regulation, and we need to have a policy to cover them. So I'm happy with that policy.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Black, would you like to add anything? Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak against this item? If not, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Item 12, Corporate Governance, Register of Delegated Authority, Annual Review. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Carter to move and Councillor Rogers to second. Are there any comments or questions? Is anyone wishing to speak against this item? If not, we'll put the item. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Item 12.2, Schedule of Fees and Charges 2026-27. We have the officer's recommendation in front of us. Yep, so it's the top one is the amended one with Appendix 3 in it. Everyone happy that we're looking at the same thing and we're all on the right page? Yep. Okay, so we have that officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Willis and Councillor Rogers will second. Are there any comments or questions at all? Would the mover like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to say that I think the fees and charges, most of which haven't gone up at all, and the ones that have are very little, I think it's very fair. I would just like to make a point that when reading through the document from a sort of ratepayer perspective, it might look like there's a couple of things in there that have gone from $0, as in no charges last year, and then, a charge this year. But they're actually new items that didn't exist. So that option or that facility hire or whatever it is didn't actually exist last year. It's not as if the ratepayer is all of a sudden being charged for something that they weren't last year. And I just thought I'd maybe mention that because it might be a good idea if something was popped into the fees and charges just to illustrate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers, would you like to... Is there anyone wishing to speak against this item? If not, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Item 12.3, Council Policy G19, Privacy and Information Handling. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Carter and a seconder, Councillor Lee, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Was anyone likely to be opposing this item? If not, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? It's passed unanimously. (12.4) Payments from Municipal and Trust Funds, May 2026. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Rogers and Councillor Willis to second. Are there any comments or questions? Is anyone likely to be opposing this one? If no one's opposing, then I'll call the item as carried. (12.5) Monthly Financial Report, May 2026. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Carter and Councillor George to second. Are there any comments or questions? Is anyone going to be opposing this item? If there's no opposition, then I'll call the item as carried unanimously. Item 12.6, Council Policy M2, Members' Fees, Allowances, Superannuation and Reimbursement of Expenses Amendment. I have a recommendation there. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Lee and a seconder, Councillor Rogers. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Lee, you going to reserve? No? And Councillor Rogers, you're going to reserve? No. Councillor Carter, you have the floor.
Just to say that it's beneficial to have clarification regarding what the ICT allowance is to be used for. I think it's a good idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak against this item? If there's no opposition, then we will put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That item is passed unanimously. Item 13, Recreational, Economic and Community Development. There is nil to be discussed there. Likewise, item 14, Infrastructure Services. There is nil there. Item 15, Items for Information. 15.1, Delegated Development Application Decisions, May 2026. These will be attached to the minutes for information. 15.2, Outstanding Council Resolutions, June 2026, will also be attached for information. Item 16, Business left over from the previous meeting, is nil. 17, elected members' motions of which previous notice has been given is nil. 18 is notice of motions for consideration at the following meeting. Does any elected member have any notices of motion? No, that is nil. Item 19, new business of an urgent nature approved by the person presiding or by decision of the meeting. We have 2 items there which we need a mover and a seconder for to accept as new business. Councillor Carter to move, Councillor Rogers to second. Is anyone going to be opposing this? If not, then we'll pass that unanimously. Which brings us through to item 19.1. Fee waiver and interim accommodation, relocation of Ovis Community Services. Councillors, we have the recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Councillor Willis and Councillor Rogers to second. Councillor Willis, would you like to, your reserve? Councillor Rogers, would you like to speak on the item?
I would just like to say that any opportunity we have to be able to support Ovis, I think, is an opportunity worth taking. They put an awful lot back into our community, and I think I've said it before when it's come up at council for different reasons. Not that this is our role to be putting these things in the community, but we couldn't do it even if we wanted to with our budgets and the like. So I think it's important to support the people that are doing it.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Is there anyone wishing to speak against this item? If not, then we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That is passed unanimously. Which brings us along to item 19.2. Expressions of interest for Dwelling Up Trails and Visitor Centre, Western portion, consideration of proposal. Councillors, we have the recommendation there, sizeable recommendation. Is everyone comfortable with what that contains? Do I have a mover for that recommendation, please? Councillor Carter and Councillor George to second. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Cashman, is it comment or question?
Question.
Just hit your button, please.
Mr. President, thank you. I just had a couple of questions and I was wondering if I could ask them through yourself for some clarification.
That's fine.
Mr. President, through you, can the Director clarify whether the Shire has previously granted a multi-year goodwill-based concession to an existing operator as distinct from establishment concessions when a start-up happens? Would you like all the questions or one at a time, Mr. President?
We might as well get an answer to that one.
Sure. Thank you.
Are you happy to take that one, Ms. Dorr?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Cashman. My understanding is that concessions have typically been granted to establishing businesses rather than established.
And your second question, Councillor Cashman? Thank you very much. Mr. President, the second question I had through you, Mr. President, can the Director confirm the nature of earlier rent-free periods provided to the other occupant of the facilities, specifically whether they were establishment-related or fire-related? Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Dorr, are you happy for that one? Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cashman, for the question. Dwelling Up Advantages were granted a 2-year rent-free period during the establishment of their business and then later granted a year by memory after the fire to help them re-establish that business.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. President, through you, can the Director confirm whether any alternative concession durations were considered, and if so, what they were? Thank you very much.
No, but Council's welcome to consider a different concession if it wishes to.
Thank you, Ms. Dorr. Thank you, Councillor Cashman. That's all your questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Carter, would you like to open debate, please?
Yeah, just to say that I think it's wonderful that we've got a proponent in that space. It's been a long time of having it not empty, but not used to its fullest. And I think it'll be good to have some new business in there and to see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor George, would you like to say anything? No? Thank you. Is there anyone wanting to speak against this recommendation? If there's no one wishing to speak against the recommendation, then I'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And that is passed unanimously. Which brings us through to item 20, which means the meeting is now going to be closed to the public for confidential business. I need a mover for that, please. Councillor George and Councillor Lee. All those in favour? That is passed unanimously. So thank you to the members of the public that are in the gallery. The meeting will now be closed so we can consider some financial and commercial matters. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And I'm bearing with you. And so Council has resolved that it accepts the CEO Performance Review Summary Report and all recommendations contained within the confidential under separate cover Appendix 1, endorses the CEO Performance Review Criteria Review Feedback Report within the confidential undercover separate cover Appendix 2, and adopts the CEO KPIs for the 2026-27 financial year within the confidential under separate cover Appendix 3. And that was carried unanimously. And with that, that brings us to item 21, which is the closure of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed at 6:04. Thank you, everybody.